In our today's episode, we talk about Fabio's journey from being a banker in 2017, 2016 in Liechtenstein to then moving to SKALE, and now he is vice president of the SKALE Foundation here in Liechtenstein. We will talk about how the industry looked back in 2016 and 17 and what we see now and what we experience now. We'll also talk about how you can actually apply for a grant if you want to build up on SKALE. And obviously we talk about his favorite coffee. I hope you like today's episode. Welcome to today's Coffee from the Block from the House of Blockchain in Vaduz, Liechtenstein. My today's guest is Fabio Tomaschett. He's from SKALE, and we'll talk about obviously why they have a blockchain protocol out of Liechtenstein, what his role is in the foundation, and we'll learn more about the unique ecosystem where we are in and what is the outlook of our industry. Welcome, Fabio.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
Obviously, it's a big pleasure to have you here. We actually met for the last time in Asia, or was that conference? No, in Brussels. Was it in Brussels?
No, Singapore.
Singapore. It was in Singapore, and I think for the first time we met in 2017. So please introduce yourself. What's your name? What's your role? Where are you? What's your journey?
Yeah, pleasure being here. Thank you for having me for a great coffee. Yeah, we've met.
That was actually my tease. I invited him for coffee.
Yeah, and you got me. Well, yeah. So everything started in 2016 when I was in college. Mauro, my friend, was well known in the space here.
Mauro Casellini.
Mauro Casellini. Yeah. We were playing golf, and he was like, "Hey, the current employer back then." They were looking into blockchain, into banking blockchain clients, and I was like, "Yeah, that sounds interesting." And I haven't decided what kind of thesis I want to do, so I decided to do a virtual payment system thesis, and yeah, that kind of led to the next step, then to working for a bank.
So you came from academia, did research, and then you thought, let's put that...
Well, my background is in banking, the apprenticeship and everything in Switzerland. I got my degree there, and afterwards I went to college, and for my thesis I needed a topic, and I talked to Mauro, and then we decided that could actually be a thing. And it sounded interesting because, like banking to me, that was one of the reasons why I left, because it became boring. Kind of boring, depends on the topic, but at least what I experienced back in the days. So I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds interesting. That's something actually which would probably also fit, which would be suitable for me as well, personally. And yeah, then everything worked out well. I started in early summer 2017 at Bank Frick, and yeah, journey started then, like going deep. Everything. Basically, the first few projects were exchanges, because Bank Frick was big in payment service providers. So some of the exchanges, they needed services, so that's where everything's. But it
was standard banking services, so they needed fiat on and off ramp.
Yeah, it was nothing crypto related. It was just some crypto exchanges which needed
a business needing a bank serving a business which does something with crypto.
Exactly, which were not like, oh no, crypto, we don't want to touch it. So Bank Frick was kind of like. I'd say forward thinking compared to others. Also, the board, the owners, they actually saw a huge chance in it, and they took it. And we started with a team of 3 in 2017, and a half year later we were close to 20. And then that's the time when we split up in different teams. So there was an exchange team, because many exchanges, they needed just simple banking services, and they still need that, I presume. And I then took over the ICO team, the token offering team. And that's when I got in touch with all those huge foundations, mostly Switzerland and Liechtenstein, but that was the focus. We did have some European projects as well, but mostly from Switzerland and Liechtenstein.
And then you basically cherry-picked the one you liked the most and said, let's be a part of it.
Well, yeah, no, there were so many projects. Some of them, they raised 100 million in a few minutes. but the white paper was just a copy paste, more or less at least. A new design, pretty much the same. And then in 2019, Jack O'Halloran and then Stan Klatko, the two co-founders of SKALE, they came to Liechtenstein. They got introduced by one of their contacts to Liechtenstein as the place to be. The SKALE Labs is a US entity, and they started the project in 2017-18. They came together through an initial VC. Stan, our CTO and co-founder, he has a PhD in physics and mathematics. He's our genius. He's like an old school cryptographer. He researched at Stanford under Dan Bonnet, so he's like a real cryptographer. And Jack, he's coming from SaaS. He was a big sales guy. He also had already some previous companies in the Bay. And from one of the previous VCs, they introduced them, and they kind of brought their minds together and founded SKALE. And then 2019, they came to Liechtenstein. They met us at Bank Frick. They needed our services, as many others. And Jack pitched what SKALE is doing. I was like, okay, that's something completely different, something I've never heard of.
What was it? What was so attractive? What was the pitch?
You know, like everyone was like, oh yeah, we just want to kind of like make it cheaper and faster.
Yeah. Allow payments on the blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But SKALE had a different vision. It had that sharded vision, so like each and every application could get access to their own network, own permission chain, etc., which was very unique then, because like everything was just like, oh yeah, let's scale Ethereum or some other, like maybe Bitcoin. That was not a hot topic then, but at least Ethereum, then the Cardanos, the Teslas, and all that, like how it is. And SKALE just had a different approach. Plus, the two founders were more senior than others. To me, that was a big one of the reasons why I also decided to join the team. It's the founders, which were super nice guys and brilliant minds as well. Plus the project, plus the tech. Like I've seen I don't know how many hundreds of white papers. And
these were the crazy times when we read white papers every day. And every day was like, we want to save the world, we want to bank the unbanked, and we want to raise a lot of money.
Exactly.
For it, obviously, for the good purpose.
And to be honest, like until probably early 2018, it worked.
No, and obviously, and that is true also. I mean, the majority of these entrepreneurs and founders, that's what they really wanted. They wanted to solve a problem, right? And as in a lot of other areas, the majority or most of them fail. That's just the nature of a startup. And I think there's no much difference here in that industry. I think it was so unique that for the first time ever, I think Europe was the center of this, okay, let's start up another company and fundraise with the means of blockchain, right? And it worked very, very well for some projects, right? So, and that was for the first time ever where we saw like these big numbers, which we are normally used to in the United States, that companies get funded very, very well to then also really execute on their vision and solution.
No, 100%. So fundraising was done through the Liechtenstein entity. Token was issued end of 2020.
Was it an Ethereum-based token?
Yeah,
or?
ERC-777, backward compatible with ERC-20, so fully Ethereum compatible. The token sale was done together with Consensus. Back then they had a product called Codify Activate. And it was made sure that it was a utility actually. So from the beginning, from the issuance, the token needed to be staked. And that was the first utility. And with that, we we're 10 times oversubscribed, so we were capped at 5 million because of the
limitations.
Oversubscribed for 10x. There were some soft rounds in the earlier days. The total amount we raised was a bit over 20 million. So then by mid 2021, early 2021, first SKALE chain went live. Which was kind of a siloed chain, similar as because Polygon was pretty much at the same time, maybe a bit earlier, but that was not the idea. Scale was here for having like that scale network, like many scale chains which can communicate with each other. You can actually transfer from one chain to another, and all of that with zero gas fees, right? So that's the USP of Scale, it's having zero gas fees in the network.
So zero gas fees, so you don't have to pay for the transfer.
Exactly.
Between multiple chains.
And on your chain as well.
And on your own chain.
Yeah, so the difference between Scale and we're also proof of stake, but the difference is that our gas token has zero monetary value. So validators normally have two different revenue streams, right? So they get bounties from running their nodes, from the delegators, and then they get rewards, gas fees, by validating blocks. And on Scale, because there's zero gas fees, they don't get gas fees paid, so to say. They get subscription fees paid. So Scale is, you can compare Scale to like a Web3 cloud, like AWS, but in the Web3 space. So it's way more scalable. These days, with V3, there's almost 1,000 TPS per own chain. But we kind of figure out that not each and every application actually needs an own chain because it's just too powerful and resources would be spent pretty inefficiently. So we at the community came up with that. They came up with different hubs. So nowadays, the strongest scale chains in the network, they're actually those hubs. So we have a gaming hub, for example. Many games are deploying on that chain, for example.
But do I have to come up with my own validators, or
no.
I can use always the same?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the difference as well on Scale. So we as a foundation or a Scale Labs team, the team behind Scale, we don't own or run any of our nodes. So they are run by external validators. We can influence or just tell them, hey, we can ask them to whatever they need to do to update and stuff. But ultimately, it's their work. It's not what we can't decide what they do with their nodes. But yeah, so we have those different hubs, which these days makes it way easier than having one application per chain, because it's first of all, you don't need one. There's no Web3 application, or at least not I'm aware of one, which would need their own scale or their own blockchain with a powerful blockchain like Scale. And it also makes it easier, and you can actually benefit from the ecosystem. So if you deploy on one of the hubs, you have access to all the other users as well. Yeah. Because they don't need to, still depends on how they use with account abstraction, etc. But if they want to play another game, for example, on the gaming hub, they don't need to switch their wallet or whatever. They can just log in and play with the same wallet, basically MetaMask, whatever they use. So it's way easier. Then there's a liquidity hub. That's, for example, where all the off-ramping, on-ramping, the sushi swap is on that, for example. That's where that is happening. And the beauty of that is, if let's say you're a gamer, you win some in-game tokens, you have some in-game tokens in your wallet, you can easily move them to, let's say, sushi, and you can trade it on sushi. And all of that is gas-free, so you don't pay anything. There is the gas token, it's called S-Fuel. But you can claim them from free, just limited to prevent spam in the network. But it's not a huge thing. Like for example, there is an application I use right now. It's from a big airline, and they use Matic. And the problem there is, you need to have Matic in your app from that airline, and to get Matic, you need to buy it somewhere first. And then you need to bridge it over to Matic, and it's just a huge pain. I don't use the Web3 aspect of that application because it's just
it's too burdensome.
Yeah, it's like user experience is horrible. And with Scale, we kind of get rid of that step because you can just claim them, or the app developer, they can provide those
automatically. You don't have to
just in a limited amount of time, which is actually most of the time happening these days. So that was the idea of Scale. That multi-chain network, creating that ecosystem for applications which prefer a proper user experience.
And you are now at the foundation. So,
yes.
For those who are not familiar with a foundation setup, I always say it's actually purpose-bound money. So you have a bunch of you have money, and then you say the money has to be used for this and that, right? And then you can differentiate between if it's a non-profit purpose or it's actually kind of a specific other purpose. Here in Liechtenstein, we are quite flexible in that respect. But what are you doing at the SKALE Foundation? What is your role there? How does your day look like?
Totally depends. Also depends on the
when you don't have coffee here.
Yeah. I always get my coffee somewhere. No, so my role is I'm a vice president at the foundation. I'm taking care of everything business operations related, working close together with our SKALE Labs engineering team and also the sales and BD team at SKALE Labs. But just to like kind of explain, so there's the foundation, and then there's the Anstalt, which is a token issuer. The foundation is the treasurer.
Anstalt is establishment in English. Actually, it's a specific corporate form we have here in Liechtenstein. Very unique. Very unique. It's a weird name in German and in English, actually.
Yeah.
Think of it like and as a combination of a foundation and an LLC, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So we have those two entities which belong together. The establishment, the Anstalt, is a 100% subsidiary of the foundation. The foundation is the treasurer. So at the foundation, we make sure that our treasury is used properly. If you look at other foundations, yes, okay, they might have like 300-400 millions in their treasury. But if you see how much they pay for marketing, for events and all of that, paid article and stuff, they have millions of dollars every week spent just for that. We're more conservative. We have been more conservative, I must say.
I mean, you travel a lot, and obviously, if you look at the events which are actually done by the industry, it's sometimes I question myself, like, who is paying for all of this? Like, it's
very intense. I mean, we were very conservative with our marketing spends, especially during the last few years. I mean, we didn't see any impact of even if you had a bigger announcement, there was not a huge impact within the ecosystem. Not many new dApps joined because of certain announcements. So yeah, it's always like, what do you want to do? But now, SKALE Labs hired a new chief marketing and growth officer, Andrew Saunders. He used to be a CMO at Arbitrum, I think their first CMO. And he used to be at Amazon. He ramped up our marketing team as well, also focusing more on Asia. And that's going pretty well. There will actually be some large campaigns coming, some new reports being published. We're working together with Blockworks, for example, on one of the reports or on a few. There's way more coming now. But just on the foundation side, again, back to that treasury, making sure that everything runs smoothly in the background. We have a grant program that's going through me as well.
So everybody can apply for grants?
Well, everybody. If you're an application interested in building on scale, you first need to go through some steps. You need to complete some forms, and you need to deploy on testnet, because testnet is permissionless, but scale, the mainnet, is permission. Just due to the fact that it's a subscription model. You can't just deploy. If you wouldn't pay, you won't get access. But you need to deploy a testnet first. But once those steps are completed, you can actually apply for a grant. I mean, you can already apply up front, but we won't look at it until
chances of being successful is actually.
Exactly. So once you're on testnet, chances that you're able to get at least some support from Scale are pretty big. We don't pay any application to build on Scale, especially upfront and liquid. It's rather sustainable. If they're not live, they don't get anything. They might get an announcement, but if they're not live, they won't get any tokens. We have different models. All tokens, like if it's a developer brand, where we basically provide a specific amount of tokens to those applications, that's locked for 12 months after going live. So it's we have it under control. We're very lean in the foundation. We don't have 20-30 team or FTEs, full-time employees in the foundation. It's a very lean team with our lawyers, accountants, trustees, board. Then there's me and some other support from advisors. But theoretically, it's a very small foundation team. So the bigger team is the SKALE Labs team. But SKALE Labs is like a separate entity which is supporting the network, but is basically working closely together with the foundation. But there's like a cut.
So in starting in let's go back to a more personal side of things. So you started in 2017. What do you think? Like, how would your life look like without blockchain? Would you be like in a bank doing the boring banking side of things, or what would you think you would do now? Have you ever thought of that? Like, is that something you say, like, I'm really happy that I actually took that job?
Oh yeah, 100%. No, I was grateful for the chance I got. But I mean, like these days, it's a bit different also in banks, I guess. They have way more digital products and stuff. It's also asset classes which are more interesting, I think, compared to, when I started, it was 2007. Like iPhones, they just came up and stuff. So it's now, there was a lot happening in the last few years. So I think, obviously, to me at least, being not a geek, but at least interested in the digital space generally.
So you're not a geek. What does that mean? Listen, but you like. I mean, I'm a gadget person. That's what I refer to myself as a gadget, because people tell me, Thomas, you have every gadget. But you're tech savvy, so you like technology, or?
Yeah, no, I definitely like technology, and I think it can be very useful. It can also be dangerous, but I don't think we need to talk about that today, at least. Maybe that's for
another coffee.
But yeah, there's so much happening, and especially in our space, it's just like every day there's something new coming up, or there's a new protocol, there's a new application, new tool, whatever. That's the next thing. It's so much hype and in the space. But back to your question, I might be still working for a bank. I couldn't. Yeah, maybe. I'm not. Yeah, I don't need to look back because I did what I did.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I'm here, so I'm glad that I'm here now. So I think that's the most important part. Even though the space is crazy.
I mean, it changed completely. Like for me, when I think of the times in 2016 and 17, I mean, it was a different environment, right? It was way more like really entrepreneurs, like having an idea and like more fundraising focus, and now I think it changed because if you look at the counterparties and if you look at the people involved, it is a grown-up space now. And actually, you are. I mean, sorry, you are way younger than I am, but you are like a dinosaur. Like if you started in 2016, 17, that's 8 years from now, times 7. Yeah. Blockchain years.
Yeah. It's been a while. Wild ride as well. Definitely, if you compare, like what I've seen back in 2017 till early 2021 when I joined then the SKALE Foundation team. That was wild west. People were waiting in line. They were flying in from all over the world to get an appointment at Bank Frick just to get an account. That was insane. And those people, some of them, they came in with their cowboy hats, cowboy boots, and literally.
We still do them. We still do have them.
Yeah, we still have them, but not like every day. At least I don't see them every day. No, we still have them. Obviously, that's also kind of like what's interesting in the space. There's so many different people, like from all over the world. Some fun people, some weird people, some influencers. That's a different topic. But it's just a space, I think, which is still growing, and we're still very small. We live in a bubble. If you talk to friends outside of Web3, they're like, Fabio, what are you actually doing? Like they're asking me that question quite a lot.
You're doing the Bitcoin thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not even the thing. It's more about like, have you heard of like some weird meme coins they read somewhere?
Okay.
And I was like, no, I haven't. Oh yeah, that's the next big thing. And I was like, okay,
yeah. That is interesting that everybody, like at least people outside of the bubble, they think if you are for them your person to talk to when it comes to blockchain, they think you have to know everything, right? And they, as you say, they found out whatever about whatever token, and they say, "Have you heard about this?" And I said, "No, I'm sorry, right?" Like, and they're very disappointed, and it's like, "No, there's a lot of things we don't know, right?"
It's just like it's an overflow, overstimulation of news every day. Even about serious projects. There are some, obviously, the last few years, some projects, they were not as successful as others. We're in a good position, our treasury is strong, so and we've built, we are there now, we're onboarding, and we've signed in Q1 and Q2 together we've signed 130 deals in our grant program. Right now I think we have a pipeline of 100 plus applications going live, 70 to 80% games. So we have a huge pipeline, and even
are you a gamer yourself?
Not anymore. I mean, I do have a PS5, but I rarely use it.
Okay.
I used to be, you know, like high school. I played some Counter-Strike Source for maybe a year or two, but that's it. But we have some big gamers in the team, like in the SKALE Labs team, which is fun as well. You know, like it's an interesting industry and it's huge. You know, gaming is bigger than movie industry and music industry together. So it's a huge audience, and I think for, you know, Web3 wise, because back today, you know, like if we talk to friends outside of Web3, they haven't heard of whatever is going on in the space. Maybe some weird coins and some scams, because that's what news media normally publishes. But when it comes to games, you know, like now with Ubisoft and many like big gaming studios actually looking into or deploying actually on chain. I think we are in a good position now at SKALE, because we are already one of the top 3-4 blockchains with games, with active users and transactions, which is exciting. You know, like and to be honest, there are so many cool games coming. Still, many people say like, yeah, but I've never played a game on chain, because if you build a proper game, it takes ages. It's like several years.
Very true.
And you know, if once you decide to build a game or create a game, yeah, it's probably up to 3, 4, 5 years until it's actually going to be released.
Yeah, and I just been in Korea, and I had the opportunity to look at some of the like previews and what they build. It's amazing, but the efforts going in and the money going in is crazy.
It's huge, yeah.
We're already almost close to the end, but one of my final question to every of my guests is, what's your favorite coffee? And you already talked about espresso and espresso martini. So is it depending on the time of the day, or?
Yes. No, I mean, espresso martini depends where. To be honest, I'm very picky with that. No, my favorite is normally just espresso doppio, black, no sugar.
Yeah.
That's probably the Italian part in me.
Nice. So you're half Italian or
no, quarter Italian.
Quarter Italian. Yeah. And the rest is?
Swiss.
Yeah. So 75% Swiss?
And 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever do this DNA analysis where you can actually check your heritage?
No. So my father's side, he's from the Romance-speaking part in Switzerland.
Okay.
My mom's, he grew up in Chur, in Graubünden. But my grandparents his parents, they're from the Romance-speaking part.
So 75%.
Probably somewhere there.
Okay. But you speak Italian, do you? No.
I used to. I mean, we in Graubünden, in our state, in our canton, we actually learn Italian at school instead of French. Okay. But you know, these days everyone just speaks English.
That's true. And our space specifically, it's crazy.
I mean, I still understand Italian. Probably not everything anymore, but I was decent, I'd say. I was okay because my grandma's also, and we spent a lot of time in Italy. But
nice. Yeah. Thank you very much for stopping by, Fabio. And we will see you at one of the other big events globally.
Yeah.
And then meet for a coffee here in Liechtenstein. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.